Three, two, one, recording, and we are back. And it is a new year. Nick, happy New Year.
Yes, you too, Dan. Happy 2021. I hope it's better for everyone than not.
Well, yeah, this COVID thing will blow over in the next few weeks. Don't worry.
Oh, if only. I don't know. I don't think you and I are getting the vaccine this year because of our age.
Okay, wow. Who gets the vaccine?
The frontline workers and all the people in our country.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I have a theory. I have a theory where I was on the My City bus in February because I used to stay in Milnerton and I would work in Cape Town, and I used to travel by car Monday to Thursday, and then Friday we'd normally go for beers after work because I work at an agency, so there's either we have a few drinks at the office or we go for beers at the Tiger's Milk. So I would take the My City bus on a Friday, and then just if you get home before 8, take the My City bus home, and if I get home like after 8, just take an Uber. But I got really sick in February for about 4 days, and I think it was COVID.
Really?
There were some people on that My City from Wuhan. I don't know. Look, so I want to go for an antibody test, but apparently they difficult to get hold of at the moment. But I'm curious to know whether I had COVID or not. Just to see.
I also have that suspicion. To be completely honest with myself, I also have the suspicion that I might have actually had it.
Yeah. Well. So if you think about it, I mean, just so the listeners know, today we're going to talk about some political stuff again with Nick, but I will come back to that. I mean, look, COVID is political at the moment as well. It's an extra layer of bullshit on top of all the other stuff we have to go through at the moment. But if you think about it, the numbers in South Africa, I think it's 1 million that have had COVID, recorded cases. I could be butchering this, but I think it's 1 million. And then there's like 700 something thousand recovered. But that there's being 50 million or being 55 million, that means 1 in 55 is recorded to have had it. And that's only the recorded ones. So we could say times that by 3 means there's about 1 in 15 or 1 in 20. So yeah, it's very possible we've had it if 1 out of 20 people have had it. And that's just me doing like spitballing a few numbers.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was a large percentage of people that actually had the virus weren't showing symptoms. And they obviously are the biggest spreaders. Because as soon as you show symptoms or get sick, you go to bed, because it knocks you down. But if you're part of that large share of people, especially in the younger demographics such as ourselves, for the moment still at least, they're the super spreaders because you have no idea that you have it, and you take precautions, but things happen, like you were saying with your My City thing. I'm sure everyone has their examples where they've slipped up or something. I mean, I forgot my mask 3 weeks ago, which is unbelievable considering the circumstances we're in, but I had to run inside to go get a mask.
Yeah.
It's just,
absolutely. And they say 43% of people who have COVID don't know they're asymptomatic. It's a very, very high number. So I look now, South Africa's had 1.26 million cases. Recovery is 1.02.
You also have to have the money to afford to get tested. I mean, a lot of people are going to be sick and just don't have the money to go get tested either.
I mean, look, even though I work, I will tell you that $850 is not something I just want to chuck at something because I'm curious. I'll only if I'm sick and I'm going to see people will I actually get a test. And which is, I mean, I haven't been sick since I have, there's days where I haven't felt 100%, but I haven't been sick, man down, since for a year now. So that's strange because usually I would get flu about once a year. That seems to have gone away. The flu numbers are down drastically because I think everyone's sanitizing. Because everyone's sanitizing and distancing.
Yeah. Okay.
But anyway, just quickly to tell the listeners as well, I do apologize about my video. It's very fuzzy. In the next week, I am getting a new studio, so I'll also just get a new camera as well. So there will be some cool pictures behind me, and Juice Ready will be a bit more flavorful.
Remember, stay objective. You can't put Liverpool banners behind you.
Well, no, it won't be Liverpool. It will be one Sadio Mane and two the Lion of Judah from Brighton and Hove Albion.
Yes.
No, there's some cool pictures. Broadly gave me a nice one of Cape Town, Lion's Head with a cloud on it. And then there's another one of I've got a few posters from Take a Lot. So there's one of there's like a world map of when this in the 1700s when like it was probably like the third world map that was ever drawn. Not the actual piece of paper itself, but like the outlines of it.
Copy of that, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just because you know.
That sounds awesome.
Well, because I
So
love
I look at all maps for hours.
absolutely. I love geography, and I always was very interested in maps growing up, which is why I still, to this day, try because I have quite a photographic memory. I still think I can tell you the capital city of any country in the world. Don't give me Eastern Europe though.
Pretty good at that too. But then
Yeah.
every now and then you hear a country and you're like, I have no idea.
What's Estonia? What's Estonia, Nick?
Estonia,
Yeah.
Riga,
Oh, that's Latvia.
is that Latvia?
Estonia
yeah.
Estonia's Tallinn, but I will just check myself quick. But anyway, yes, I was right. I got you, Nick. Cool. But today that is just a little intro for the juicers or the radios, whatever you guys want to call yourselves. We're gonna try and get some more subscribers soon because I've got a secret. We'll only unleash that tomorrow, so stay tuned.
Only Batandwa gets to hear the secret, not me.
No, you can watch the episode with Batandwa, or you can call me after this and I'll tell you.
Okay.
Actually, I don't really know the strategy yet, so I can't really say it. But we've got some. There's a wave of online users that are very interested in a topic that we want to talk about. So, might as well leverage it for marketing for the channel. But I do think that the Juice Ready followers, they're not all about football. And I mean, that's the one that gets the most views. But let's talk about Donald Trump. Let's talk about the Capitol building, Nick. We hear you, the political correspondent. What happened what happened that day? I'll try and publish this quite quickly.
Yeah, you can't actually believe it was just a week ago now. I mean, it was last Wednesday, recording this the following Wednesday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long time coming, but essentially a bunch of his supporters tried to storm the building, and the word coup has been used, the word insurrection, the word rebels.
So
I don't think it went that far.
Yeah, what's the right word though? Because coup is not right because there was no illegitimate change in government.
You can use the word attempted coup. I think that's a fair word to use. But at the same time, it's not, because I don't think they knew what to do once they got in the building.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, I don't think no one expected that to happen, including them. I think it was a case of the actual event itself getting out of hand, and the fact that there wasn't enough security, and it all kind of snowballed. Now, there is obviously evidence to the contrary. Pipe bombs have been found, lots of weapons have been found. There's obviously lots of online evidence that there was a coordination here. But I think the fact that they managed to breach the barricades and the building itself and then didn't know what to do afterwards, I think that's, for me, an indication of A, the incompetency, and B, how scarily close they came to being successful. And I think that needs to be dealt with.
So what do you mean successful? Because what I saw was...
What was the point? I mean,
what was the point? What was the point?
point?
What I saw was an idiot in a Viking helmet with no top on. Were they really trying to overthrow a government? I didn't see any like.
Some of them were. I mean, there were signs. Some of them did have weapons, because obviously.
There were some weapons
in the American case. They found 3 pipe bombs, one at the DNC headquarters, one at the RNC headquarters. I'm not sure where they found the third one.
Okay, but
there's lots of evidence that a small minority in the crowd went to the event planning something.
Okay.
There's clear evidence for that. I don't think you can go and take the entire crowd and lump them all together into that one group. But that happens with every crowd and every protest and every event like this, whereby you'll always have your more moderate members who are protesting in their eyes legitimacy, and then you get the ones who come with the intention to cause violence and cause
Yeah.
problems. And I think
And I
the
mean,
distinction between those two has to be made as well.
so, but it's strange how we can't have a decent conversation about this because on the one hand, you get people on the right that want to compare this to BLM protests. And I mean, even though,
Which it's not.
well, I mean, it's completely different. So even though in a BLM protest, even though there was some looting and damage of property, they didn't go anywhere near the Capitol
They didn't
unless
storm.
unless
They
I
didn't
missed
storm.
something.
They didn't storm the parliament of the country. I mean, that's what
No,
the capital, their parliament.
right, yeah.
And it's more, and also the reason behind any theoretical violence also matters. The election wasn't a fake. The election wasn't stolen. We all know this. We all know that the lies that have been peddled since November have led to this moment.
Yeah.
It's,
Well,
it, it doesn't happen in a vacuum.
but then also on the left, where people can't, like the media, which is mostly left leaning in America, mainstream media, um, they do lump the whole crowd into, there was a white nationalist rally. Um, I don't think it was that. I think there was a tiny bit of election fraud in one of the states, and not enough to swing it to the either way. But I mean, Trump obviously is irresponsible by doing what he did and encouraging this type of shit. But there's what I'm saying is we just can't have we just can't have a decent conversation about it because people pick sides. So either you're going to go with the Democrats or the Republicans, and you can't just say, okay, cool,
You know what?
this was wrong or this was right. Yeah.
No, I disagree with that statement entirely. Because
Okay.
up to a point, everyone has their sides. But I like to think that if this was a liberal or a democratic president doing the exact same thing, I would be as outraged.
Okay.
And I would be.
Well, no, you do have political commentators on the right saying this is an outrage, but then they compare it to BLM, and I'm like, wow, you can't do that. That's different. So it just seems like that. I suppose this will only happen when Biden takes office, but it just seems like Americans do need to come together and just say, look, let's sort out what we need to here in terms of our differences and work on a way forward for America, not for the Republicans or the Democrats.
Well, I mean, you can view it in general. I think rather than just speak of it on American terms, it's almost a generational battle that's happening across multiple places in the world at the moment. Most Democrats, if you go and you look at the voting numbers, Democrats are largely younger, Republicans are older. You go and you look at Brexit, the Remainers were mostly young people, and those who are going to be affected by the decision in the future, the Leavers were mostly old people, 40s plus. You look at issue after issue, climate change, again and again and again. It splits along different party lines and different ideologies. But if you look at the core manifestation of it, many times it's age-related.
Right. Same as
and I don't know how how to fix that problem other than the old people need to die. But that's obviously a terrible thing to say.
But Nick, on Juice Ready, we look to you for the answers. Why don't you have them?
Because there are no answers. It's more opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Action on climate change. Action on climate change. It's nothing. Nothing's going to happen until our generation is truly in power.
Yeah.
That's just how I really feel, and I think by then it might be too late.
I mean, you see the same in the News 24 comments. They don't have comments on their website anymore, but they still have comments on Facebook, and you see old racist people, and you see young liberal people. But I'm not saying that all conservatives are racist. Which
all people are conservatives. There's always going to be mix.
Well, it annoys me when people say, well, so that's exactly all people are conservatives, or all conservatives are racist. It's just not true. But I mean, you see that sort of same pattern playing out. So your answer is that we need to wait for them to die. Thank you, Nick.
No. My real answer is that we need to deal with how information is shared and how critical thinking happens and is taught in schools. You know, um, the positions that I have aren't willy-nilly or because it's my tribe. They're informed positions that I've gone and read up on. And a lot of them are more nuanced. I mean, I would consider myself on the liberal side, but you know, you look at things, you look at all of the issues. Let's take the death penalty, for instance. On paper, I'm completely against the death penalty, just because I don't think that the state should be doing it. But if someone that you know for a fact, it can't be unproven, like goes and sits in jail for a lifetime sentence and gets shanked, whatever, you know, there's one less horrible person in the world. That's my opinion. But I just don't think the state should be doing the killing, because I think it opens up a lot of areas for abuse, such as what happened during apartheid, which is one of the reasons why we'll never have capital punishment here. There's a lot of place for nuances and to find common ground on. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for our country, for ourselves, for our family. It's just about how we all think we're going to get there. A lot of people like to demonize what you see in American media and those American right people, and some of them do deserve to be demonized because you can't really defend their positions. But then a lot of them, and I think they're the majority, if you just dig a little bit deeper, you see the economic ruin that a lot of their middle class has gone through. You see the estrangement. You understand where it comes from and how it can lead to things like Trump. Not excusing it, but you know, it's about having that, walking a mile in someone else's shoes, and you can kind of understand their perspective. I think that's where we've all gone wrong on both left and the right. You know, think of like the poor black family that's living in Detroit. You know, they're going to vote Democrat because of the circumstances in the past, but you have to understand their journey that they're going through and why they're voting, how they're doing that. When they get called the N-word in America on the streets all the time,
right?
When people look at them as they're just normal citizens, they're walking down the street, but people will walk around them. Those type of things, like, you can understand where the anger comes from.
Sure.
And it really comes about from a lack of communication, and that can only really be changed by individuals. You know. Take South Africa as an example. We really haven't had racial reconciliation until us younger generations, who hopefully are a bit more exposed to each other's cultures, can take the reins. It's the exact same thing in America. You have to be exposed to all these other cultures in order to accept them. If you're just thrown into, I mean, if you grown up in a rural town and then you're suddenly thrown into the big city environment where it's multicultural and multiracial, and you have multiple different economic structures and economic levels in society that don't really exist in a rural area, it's going to cause a reaction from you because you've got no way to deal with all of these new inputs.
That's correct. And
we have to communicate. That's what it is. We're two in our own little, what's the word? Echo chambers. We're too stuck in our own little echo chambers where we're not experiencing life for other people, so we can't understand their views.
Well, that's true. Would you say that far left and far right are just as dangerous as each other?
No, the far right is far more dangerous than the far left. Unfortunately, they're both dangerous, but the far right way more so, as you can see, just from last week.
Right. Okay. Stalin.
I mean, let's take them to the extremes. On one side, you have Stalin and you have Mao. Both caused the deaths of hundreds of millions of people. And on the other hand, you have Hitler. And they're also millions and millions of people.
Hitler killed 6 million. Mao and Stalin killed hundreds of millions.
Hitler's killed way more than 6 million. It was 6 million Jews. It was about 10 million in the Holocaust. And so if you consider that World War II probably might not have happened if he wasn't in power, you know, you're talking in excess of close to 100 million people.
Yes, well, yeah, also the wars. So, but what also you have to think of is not only the people that died, it's all the future generations that you wiped out because they didn't have children.
Yeah,
Um,
Russia itself has demographic problems still to this very day because
yeah.
what happened in World War II. An interesting fact: if you were born in 1923 and a Soviet male, you had a 1 in 4 chance of making it to 1946.
Wow. So I do apologize. I made a mistake there. Hitler didn't kill 6 million. He killed 6 million Jews.
Yes.
Yeah, he killed more than that. Okay, so they're both very dangerous. So I sort of see myself a little bit more on. So I mean, I definitely am, probably because I live in the city and because I have a circle that encompasses all walks of life, see myself a bit more on the left. But I do kind of, so where I think where we maybe disagree is what role government should play. I think the government should protect their citizens from external threats and internal threats, so like army and police. There should be I don't know, a hospital and a fire station and not much else actually. They shouldn't get too involved. So there's that extreme where sort of maybe you call it libertarianism, and then you get the extreme like where in Canada you are forced to the government sort of compels what you can and can't say. So where you said you don't think the government should execute people, what role do you think the government should play in a normal society? You know, your ideal utopia.
I mean, honestly, if it was up to me, we would be we would be having something like a German or Nordic system. But you need your country to be rich enough to be able to do that system, whereby yes, everyone pays 60% tax, but no one's ever going to be poor. No one's ever not going to have a house. Everyone gets to go to university. Everyone gets
Mm,
to go to school. You
yeah.
know, I
You see,
mean
so I
that's
like
the dream.
yeah,
But but
that is the
but
dream, and I
it's
like
just
that.
not
But
possible in some places. You know, you can never have that in America just because of the political culture. You can't have that in South Africa at the moment just because the country isn't rich enough. And also, even if the country was rich enough, I don't think we have the capacities of state to do it.
you see,
It's very inefficient and very corrupt, and that's just what it is.
yeah, no, I'm with you there. I mean, in my utopia, it would be that everyone starts off with an equal chance, absolutely equal, like level, and those who work hard rise to the top. And I don't mind if someone's homeless if they're just not prepared to do any work. If they want to be lazy and homeless, I don't mind if they're on the street and homeless. Um, And if someone wants to work hard and they have a mansion, that's great as well. They can be as rich as they want to be, as long as they all start in the same. Now, unfortunately, we don't have that. We have very different places of starting. If you're in a mansion, you could be lazy your whole life and still end up in a mansion
Yeah, you're
on your
going to
deathbed.
inherit
And
time.
you could start in a township and still work your ass off and end up in a township. But I do like capitalism because it gives people more of a chance than I think communism does. Now, I don't say I have all the answers, um, but this will probably annoy some of the Juice Ready subscribers that will tell me to read a book. But I just, from there are historical problems with communism, and
But
that hasn't been resolved to me yet. And
you can't deny that. I mean, I would also call myself a capitalist at the end of the day. You can't deny that. I mean, take China for an example. They kept the they liberalized their economy. They went essentially state capitalist
mm,
for all intents and purposes in the last 30 years, and it's paid dividends. Um,
well, it's more efficient.
Regardless of your opinion on China, foreign affairs, and their
Yeah.
treatment of the Uyghurs and everything, you still can't deny the fact that the Chinese government gets its legitimacy from the fact that it's raised 700 million people out of extreme poverty in the last 30 years.
Yeah, with
I mean,
capitalism, right?
with capitalism, it's a
Oh,
state-sponsored capitalism.
there's also there's a world
It's a mixed
market.
model. It's a mixed model essentially
Yeah, yeah,
between
yeah.
you have elements of communism, the nicer elements, and you have the nicer elements of capitalism kind of put together.
So I'm
Now,
not. I'm just talking about economics.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, in theory, I mean, obviously, with China, you get a lot of political control and state control and things you can and can't say that you won't get in Western areas.
Okay.
But you're just looking at it from a pure economics perspective. It's been wildly successful for them. It's also
Mm.
generally when it's done properly, and it's not done as a means to just make the rich wealthy. It is successful.
Yeah.
You
So,
look at the rebuilding of Europe after World War II as
so,
another example.
so my question to you is, why is it? And I mean, this is maybe why I started the channel, so we can talk about things like this. Why is it that if you're on the left and you're sort of liberal and you care about liberal values, you don't really see the need to conserve, sort of elements of society that we need to kick out anyway, like sort of the far right white nationalists. That's something that could go today. But why is it the further left you go, people start talking about ugly things like communism?
It's more of a case, I mean, for both extremes, it's a case of looking after their own group. Um, you know, you would look at extreme communists and they would point at the extreme poverty that capitalism can create.
Right.
And that would be a motivation for them to do some of the terrible things that they've done. And you look at the right and they're saying our culture's in decline, too many immigrants that aren't like us.
But
We
but
need
that
to
the right that's
step up.
that thing on the right of our culture's in decline. Didn't that start off as, we want more freedom? So there's oppression from either a government or a monarchy,
Well,
and
it's
you
perceived
just want
oppression. I mean,
libertarian freedom.
sometimes the oppression is not real. There,
Mm.
it's a weird case because over time, as the world has become more complex and more interconnected and more technologically developed, governments have had to have more and more of a say in people's lives. Think about your driving license and all of those things, your TV license, what taxes,
I mean,
whatever,
Nick,
whatever.
I'll
We're
just put
trying
it
to
out there
turn
quickly.
everyone away.
We don't need a TV license. Fuck that.
Yeah, we don't. But I'm saying all of these interactions that people have
Yeah.
with the government, it's increased over time as governments and societies have become more complex. And that's where a lot of the pushback has come from, especially from in the West, the right in America, in Britain. A lot of the arguments they use is there's just too much regulation, there's too many rules, it's impossible to follow, it's impossible to enforce. And that's where it all comes from.
And there's economic red tape as well.
Yeah, and I mean, really, that comes up to you where you sit on in your political divide. I'm personally fine with it. I understand where it comes from, and that's why I'm fine with it. I understand that a lot of people aren't, and they're on the more live free or die, as little rules as possible thing. It is what it is. There's no real right or wrong. It's just about what needs to be done in the country.
Okay, so let's go back to Trump. Yeah,
Let me give just one example to close it off.
sure.
120 years ago, no one needed a license to ride a horse.
Yeah,
Okay?
you either knew how to ride one or you didn't. Yeah.
No. And at the same time, it would also take you longer to travel between places because the horse was the fastest you could go for thousands of years, maybe a boat. At the same time, then suddenly cars come about. And so people can now do much faster speeds, but with those faster speeds come the consequences of accidents.
Okay.
And so because government has a mandate to protect all of its citizens, now everyone has to have a license. You have to have proven that you're capable of driving
Sure.
this without causing
And
an accident.
I'm happy with that. Yeah.
And you see that's what governments say is they say, okay, fine, X amount of people are always going to be reckless, but we can't not enable people to drive.
Right.
It's the same thing with alcohol, with cigarettes, driving, you name it. Government has a mandate to protect as many people as it can, but this is what that protection means.
Yeah.
The laws aren't, people say laws are arbitrary, and they are to an extent, but a lot of the time the laws come from bigger mandates.
Okay, so you said alcohol and cigarettes, but you forgot to mention cooked chicken, pies, and hey,
I love chicken pies.
do you know that but okay, you probably haven't heard this, but cooked chicken and pies were banned for 2 or 3 weeks in April last year.
Really?
Research it.
Why?
NDZ banned it because COVID and protecting people. But anyway, we'll move on. Yeah, it's a real thing. There was a hell of a noise made about it, and they reversed that decision. But that's the type of dumb, arbitrary law that I really can't stand.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see, you turn people off as soon as a law is seen as legitimate, illegitimate, or stupid. You turn a lot of people off from doing it, and so you actually harm it. You harm the the implementation of the law
The
itself,
rule,
because
the
you
rule of
go
law
so
that,
far.
yeah, people lose
You've
respect
gone
for the
so
rule of
far
law.
yeah, you go so far overboard that people are like, okay, they throw their hands up and being like, well, this is
And
ridiculous.
then they rip their mask off and they and and they run into
Uh,
the
exactly.
supermarket.
So, government
Um,
always has to know how far they can push their
yeah,
population. There are breaking points, and
yeah,
that's what increases illegitimacy.
right. So, and I think we're in a strange time because we are. So you used an example with horses and cars. So there is technological capitalism. So cars, cell phones, Facebook, Twitter, and then there's, we are in a we are now global citizens in a world where we need to think about each other more. We need to solve poverty. We need to eradicate environmental harm that we're doing, which capitalism gets a very bad name for, and it is in large part responsible for damage to the
Is
environment.
it?
But it definitely is. No,
At the
but
end of the day, if you want to live a nice life, you have to use energy, and
yeah, and we're making plastic every day. It's
people,
true.
you have to use energy and resources to
So,
be able to live the
yeah.
life that we want to
So,
live.
so to my point, we're in this strange time where we do need to think about each other more, and we do need to, we've got to solve these issues between men and women, between the races, between cis heteronormativity and queer. We got to solve this issue of climate change and green, and we have to try and do it without the herd mentality that says I'm gonna just do this because this is what my team thinks. I'm not gonna think for myself, and we have to start doing it now because the age of automation is coming at us very fast and it's going to be here soon. And technological capitalism is what gets us there. And then we have to think of ways. So we've got to try and balance it with ways of how do we behave better as a community. So, so what's the middle sweet ground? What's the sweet spot, Nick?
Well, it's going to change from place to place. I mean,
Yeah.
so can you imagine trying to institute, like, for instance, a universal basic income in America?
Can you
Um,
can you
it's not.
think?
It's just not going to happen.
Well, they want a universe. Well, okay.
They
Well,
can try it in some of the
we
liberal states, but can you imagine trying to get it past the Congress? It would be a complete shit show.
Well,
Um,
I mean, I could see it happening in blue states, but then all the very wealthy
yeah.
people, I could see all the very wealthy in the blue states migrating to red states, kind of like what is happening at the moment in California.
Well, California is one example. Um, I should note that it's there are many different. Let me restart that.
Mm.
California is one example. It currently has a slight net migration loss, but there in general is a large trend of people moving southwards in the United States, whether it be Texas or other southern states, uh, just because of warmer conditions and better economic options. Um,
Yeah.
some of the rich people do obviously move, but that's something that governments can deal with themselves. The problem is that we live in an international globalized world economically, but politically we don't. It's still run by nation states. So if for whatever reason I in country A go and raise my taxes, everyone goes over to country B, C, and D. Britain's done that, by the way, since the 70s. They've created a lot of legal and tax loopholes to entice rich people over into their country, and that's why London is what it is today, including the property prices.
Mm.
You can't buy a toilet in London without £1 million.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's gonna look different from country to country.
Right.
But when you're going to be looking, when politicians and governments, especially in democracies, never mind the dictatorships, are going to be looking at 30, 40, 50% of their country not being able to ever be employed because of automation by the end of the century.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you as a society? You're going to have to come up with some sort of solution, because whilst you're going to have major issues in your country. I mean, look at how many of our issues are at the end of the day come down to people not having jobs in South Africa.
Right. Yeah.
So
No.
many of our issues, from alcoholism, from crime, everything can be traced back to the fact that for however many decades we've had 30, 40% unemployment rate effectively.
Yeah, but that at the end of the day, that's why I don't like communism. Social unrest is caused by economic instability, and now this is going to annoy people, and I get it. But if the money is right, people generally are able to get along. And if you take a
That's
cut,
what
if you
use the money right for as well.
no, no, I mean if the money's right, if everyone has a job and it's yeah, I'm not
Okay.
talking about only the wealthy. I'm talking about taking an unemployment rate from 40% to 10%. Yes, there's still 10% unemployed, but the money is better in the second scenario. And then you get a place like Venezuela, which is using I don't know what system. Do you know what's happening in Venezuela? What's happening there? Why is the economy so bad?
They're on the left gone crazy kind of thing, unfortunately. Um, at some point, whether you're on the left or on the right, it devolves so much that it just becomes a dictatorship. It really doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right. The outcomes and consequences for your people are the same.
But
And
okay,
that's
but now
economic growth.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate and I asked you if the far left and the far right are equally as dangerous, and you said the far right is far more dangerous.
I
Why
do. I
why
do
now
honestly.
why now did you say this they're the same?
No, eventually, when you get to the
Consequences. Yeah.
dictatorship side, aka, it's one thing about having extremists protesting on the street.
Yeah.
It's another thing entirely when it's your actual government, the people in control, that are crazy and
Cool. So
doing
so
how to control things.
then my
And
next
that's
yeah.
Venezuela's one example of the left going crazy.
Okay, so then my next question to you is if you don't have left and right and they don't balance each other out in society, look, 90% of people don't care about this shit. They just want to
Well, they do care.
well
They just don't identify. They'll have
yeah.
bits and pieces from both sides.
They do like such kind of like me. I mean, I have conservative views and I have liberal views, but I want to work. I want to do well at work. I want to inspire other people in my team to do well. Eventually, hopefully, probably we don't know about this yet, but maybe have a family. I want to take my kids to soccer and cricket practice. I want to have dinner, watch a movie, go to bed, and not care about very conservative or liberal viewpoints. I just want to live my normal life, right? So my question to you then is if we have everyone on the far left or everyone on the far right, it's going to become a far left or a far right government with a totalitarian
So
state.
there will always be a divide in the country. It's just about there will always be a natural divide that occurs in populations. Um, what you term the left could become the far left, and then you get
Mm,
a breakaway party occurring. That
okay.
often happens. That often happens in societies where there's a consensus for a number of years
Mm,
within like a ruling majority of the population, and then something happens and it breaks apart.
yep.
I
Okay. So
mean,
what would you say?
happens again and again and
Like,
again and again. There will always be internal divisions in a society. It's just about because that's human nature, you
yeah.
know.
And an example of that is like immigration in the UK and Brexit. Okay,
Yeah,
on the right, which is damaging and stupid, but and young people didn't want Brexit, but they got it because of the stupid far, what I call the stupid far right.
the freedom. That's what I call them.
Yeah, the dumb
The
far
free,
right. Yes.
freedoms. Yeah.
So what I was asking is like, I mean, aren't they just as dangerous as each other? I'm just coming from an
They,
ignorant point of view. I mean,
they can be. I mean,
I,
at the end of the day, when you any if you look at the ideologies, when you take them any ideology or anything to its extreme, it often will end up badly
okay.
for the majority involved. Um, but you can also obviously advocate for whatever your cause is in the right manner.
Yeah.
Let's take gay marriage as an example. In 2004, the first American state legalized gay marriage. It was Massachusetts, and then Governor Mitt Romney, oddly enough. Um,
Hmm.
and then 6 years later, it was legal everywhere. You know,
So we
sometimes an idea's time has come.
so
You could make the argument that gay marriage should have been legal in America long before that, but
I do
the
make that argument.
population wasn't ready.
Yeah.
The country itself wasn't ready, and that's just how it is. The people that try and push things on countries, whether it's on the left side or the right side, they are the ones that promote the backlash and set back real progress.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree to
very much,
that.
I'm very much one of those people that sometimes you have to lead, but you can only lead so far.
Yeah. So what I got from that is that you are very thankful to the Republicans and Mitt Romney.
Well, he was a Republican then. He
Sorry,
was
what?
he was a Republican governor in a Democratic state.
Okay.
I think
Well,
most Democrats.
how does that happen? How did that happen?
Because in America, people vote on policy. A lot of people, and so
Okay.
yeah, he
So
managed to.
you can have a governor who's a Democrat if you're in a red state. If
It happens all the time. It's
uh,
just that they won't be as left. I mean, take the Democrat example.
yeah.
They won't be as left leaning um, than they would they won't be as left leaning as the National Party. So, for
Okay.
instance, I mean, at the moment, Kentucky, one of the most conservative states in America, has a Democrat governor at the moment with 2 Republican senators. I mean, there's one example.
Okay.
The examples all over the place.
I think you're a bit soft. Just talk into your. Try put your
How
mic
about
a little bit closer.
Right? I'll just move my camera and my mic closer to me. There.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry,
the
it was
example,
fine before that.
There are examples all over the states where you will get a governor from the other party in power. And that's just because people vote on whatever the issues of the state are. And,
Okay.
yeah. It's
Okay,
very
cool.
common.
So I think just before we've been talking for quite a while, but before we wrap up, what's your view on, I mean, we've also spoken about technological capitalism and I spoke about things like Facebook and Twitter. So what's your view on um, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and 3 or 4 other major platforms banning Donald Trump and censoring him? Good or bad? I mean, I'm okay with it because they are private companies and private companies can do what they want, in my opinion. What's your view on it?
Very mixed bag, I must be honest.
So Nick, you're very soft. Are you far from your mic?
Wait, let me try that. How about now?
A bit better.
I'll just move right up to it.
Okay.
It's a very complex situation because there are obviously these, what shall we call them, environments where people naturally congregate for their news and their information, and that is all these social media and online places, Twitter, Facebook, etc. And yes, there are private companies. So at the end of the day, it is their decision. But when there is no viable public alternative, I think it becomes slightly more different. Because, if I don't want to use Facebook, but everyone else is on Facebook, I either have to engage via Facebook or not engage at all. And that isn't an option for some people, like it or not.
Yeah.
In regards to them banning him, I completely understand why they've done it. And if I was in their CEO's position, I would do the same thing. But I also think that it does cause issues whereby who's the ultimate arbiter of what gets posted and what doesn't get posted, what gets banned and what doesn't get banned. And there's no real right answer for that because someone has to do it. You can't have someone inciting violence all over the place. It quickly falls apart.
Or it turns into a war because they are inciting violence. People are listening to them.
Exactly. And at the same time, something had to be done. You couldn't have all these tweets and videos and incitement going out because it causes so much shit. But them banning him is a problem in and of itself. But there has to be some form of public means. And when I say public, I'm saying public and private. So there has to be some sort of public engagement option. But, just going and making one out of thin air doesn't mean it's going to become popular. People go where it's popular.
So what I was okay with is when they had, I mean, and I'm okay with them banning him as well because it's a private company, and it's up to whoever created it. Facebook is a monopoly. They own the company. It's a monopoly. I get it, and people who hate capitalism and call for its downfall will also hate this. Mark Zuckerberg's a billionaire. He's made multiple billions. But he didn't, in my opinion, he's not oppressing anyone. You can choose a different platform if you want. The fact that we're all sheep and flock to his platform is maybe a symptom of a worse problem with humanity that we need to think about solving. But I just think that they did it okay. When Trump tweeted, this election was rigged, they would put a little stamp at the bottom of his tweet saying, this claim about election fraud is disputed.
Yes.
So that was cool. I mean, why can't we just keep that? Because now, as soon as you ban Trump, he goes on to Parler or whatever else he wants to, and then all his what we call free dumb or stupid right followers follow him there and go and listen to him inciting violence on that platform. And that's when,
Well, you see that's the problem. Is just like we were talking about earlier. Is
yeah,
we have to, as a society, come and agree on a shared reality.
right.
Able to be able to have a fundamental conversations.
But
I can't have a conversation with someone that tells me the Earth is flat. It's just not possible.
would you see? I also I think I think we need to have more moderate political voices because I also yeah, I can't have a conversation with someone that says the Earth is flat, and there are also people that can't have a conversation with me because I'm a straight white male. Everything I say to them is just, well, obviously you think that because you're a white man, and I'm just then I can't take them seriously because they say they don't want racism, but they aren't taking my viewpoint seriously because my skin's white, and I'm just like, so that blows my mind as well. But we need to come to a point where we get to where we actually have adult conversations about these things that are important, and I think that needs to happen before the automation revolution kicks in because it's coming in the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, it is quite scary. Doesn't matter what side of the aisle you stand on or where you are politically. The fact that the chasm between the sides is growing so much at such a pace.
Yeah.
It can't be good. It can't be good for society at the end of the day, because I look at it from the liberal perspective, and I think, oh my God, all these people are getting left behind. How are they so uneducated? How can they have these opinions?
Mm.
It's incomprehensible to me that people can have these opinions, but the fact that so many of them do,
Yeah.
obviously means that there's something out there that's causing these opinions.
But also,
Until we deal with that.
yeah.
And I mean, the people on the right will have the same view about my positions.
Yeah, but no, but you get this. You get this in COVID. You get it with 5G. You get it with censorship on social media. Like I have aunties and uncles that are sort of right leaning, but you can't have an adult conversation with them about 5G or COVID because there's always a conspiracy.
Yeah,
And so we
I'm
need it.
in a position. I have older family members where they open their mouth, and I just want to immediately go and close their mouth for them.
Yes, but so we need to have. I think the solution is not going to come from the far left or the far right. I think it comes from somewhere in the middle where people can have adult conversations and listen to each other. And maybe next week we'll talk about COVID and 5G. What do you think about that?
There's nothing to talk about.
Yes, there's
They
a lot.
aren't related. No, they're not.
No. I'm
Not
saying
related.
as two separate issues. Not that
Please.
5G causes COVID. No,
I know, but
I'm not
the
there.
fact that I was reading an article the other day on News 24 about a bunch of people going and attacking a cell phone tower in the middle of KZN
Fuck's sake.
because they were scared the tower was going to give them corona. I mean,
Wait. Cancer or corona?
corona. They were going to get the
Whoa.
coronavirus from the tower.
You see, we need to
No?
stop this shit. I don't have time for this, Nick.
I, I, I don't know how to have a conversation with someone who thinks like that. Just
Yeah.
because it's so ridiculous.
You see, if you were to say if you think it's going to give you a virus, then there's a problem with your brain. But if you say maybe this 5G tower is giving me cancer, then I could say, all right, well, let's talk to a doctor about this. But I mean, it can't give you a virus. It's just not how the world works. And even though I didn't study biology, but I know that. Anyway,
Yeah, it's going to sneeze. It's going
so-
to emit the radio wave corona onto you.
yeah. Thank you, Nick. So I suppose last thing before we go, when do you think Donald Trump gets his social media profiles back?
He doesn't. He's been permanently banned. Thank God.
Well, I know he's permanently banned on Twitter and
permanently banned
Facebook,
on Facebook.
and YouTube followed suit yesterday. Google.
Yeah, by Google, yeah.
So he's permanent. So what? So is he going to just create a new profile called Trump Donald?
No, honestly, I think he's going to have so many legal issues coming afterwards in this next year.
Oh, yeah.
Just from what's been the rumor mills doing the round of
Yeah.
the amount of legal and financial issues that he's in. I don't think he's going to have the time.
I hope he goes to jail. I just do. Sorry to my
I
aunties
also
and
believe,
uncles.
I
Yeah.
believe he should be in jail too. I also think Jacob Zuma should be in jail, but not that that's ever going to happen
Well, I
because
think I think Dlamini Zuma should be in jail for banning cooked chicken and pies. But that's just my viewpoint.
no, you can't go to jail for that. I mean,
You should be
regardless of what
no.
you think about it, that's not a jailable offense.
I'm sorry, but Nick, listen to this, right? So this is my theory. If you ban cooked chicken and pies, you undermine the people's ability to actually believe in the rule of law and the enforcement of it.
Yeah,
Therefore,
you do it.
that's a jailable offense. You should this is why I hate big government and why I want them to give us an army, a police force, a fire station, and let's do the car licensing thing as well. When you ban cooked chicken and pies, and you guys can research this, it's true. It just undermines everybody's ability to actually believe in what the law stands for. And then you've got our friend that doesn't believe in laws and borders, and you get people like that. And it's turning me into
Daniel, I unfortunately having to remember paying 200 rand for a box of cigarettes a few months ago.
So
Obviously not bought legally, but that's
No.
just what it was. No,
My guy
understand
they smuggled from Europe, the Marlboros.
I don't know what they were, but they
No,
were.
well, talk to me. I can get Marlboros. They are
Really?
smuggled. I mean, but that's what banning cigarette does. There's no such thing as okay, now you won't smoke. It's just that yes, we will. We're just going to smoke crap, or we're going to buy imported smuggled cigarettes for 10 times the price.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's why prohibition doesn't work, never works, will never work. You have to deal with the reason why people are smoking. Why do so many people in South
So now
Africa smoke? Because life in South Africa is very tough.
But now
and very
that's what I call the stupid left is the overarching communist overlords that ban cigarettes. But let me not spew my opinion.
That's a completely bad. I think it's a valid point. But you also when they went into depth about why they banned cigarettes. I mean, the whole sharing of cigarettes and stuff like that, and obviously split between the butts and things like that. You understand where it comes from,
No.
but it's more. I understand where it comes from, but it just feels like it's a bit of a baby attitude.
I live in the real. I
Not
live
a
in.
baby. I'm not a
Yeah.
baby. No, I can take care of myself.
But I also live in the real world where people still gonna smoke cigarettes and they're gonna share
Yeah.
them. They're gonna share them even more because now they're paying way more for them.
Yeah, I mean
So,
that's
anyway.
the tale of unintended consequences.
We-
Long and deep.
Yeah. Anyway, Nick, thank you very much. I think we've used our time, and I'd love to have you back on next week to remind me of all the things that I don't know.
Oh, thank you again, Daniel. It's been a great chat.
Cheers, Nick.
We'll see if Trump's still president next week, Wednesday.
And we will see if Percy Tau scores tonight for Brighton against Man City.
I think both of us are hoping that he does, considering you are a Liverpool supporter and I'm a Manchester United supporter.
Let's just end on that before we start making other comments.
Hey, okay, wait. Top of the table by 3 points.
We're going to speak again next week, and this will be corrected.
Yeah, well, it's Anfield this weekend, so we'll see.
Exactly. Keep well, Nick.
Cheers, Dan.
Ciao.